Okay, for people joining the live stream, we are going through a collection of issues about Wolfram Language design in preparation for the release of a new version of language. So first up, we have Find Character Encoding, a somewhat horrifying story of attempting to find what the encoding in bytes, what the encoding of a byte string is. We're just looking at this, and if we take something like a piece of French, the histogram in ISO-Latin 1. By the way, do we have a list of possible character encodings? Is that?
That's all right, yeah.
Solid character encoding. So for example, if I were to do the following, if I were to just take 2-character code of that line 1 thing and each of these, and then I were to say histogram each of those, I'm just curious what it looks like and whether we think this is distinguishable or not. What is a plausible histogram here? Boy, this is taking its time. Why is it taking so long? That's odd. Okay, there we go. All right, so the question is, should machine learning expect to be able to distinguish?
Right, and I mean, there is a subtlety that, some of the ISO encodings are very similar, right? Because they, only differ, right? The bottom 128 are all the same. And then...
Should we live really dangerously? Let's do a feature space plot of this thing. Does that even have a hope of working?
Of the plots? Of the histograms? I mean, it'll do something, I'm sure, but whether it's at all useful, I doubt. That's better looking than I was expecting.
I think that's kind of interesting. I don't know whether that...
all those little tiny plots.
How can I get this to look better? And that's a question for feature space. This is interesting. This is interesting. What happened here, it did a surprisingly interesting job. Look at that. Look at that. Okay, how do I get this to work better? How do I get this to display in a reasonable way?
You want
Can you make it be labeled by the character encoding? Because that would be more meaningful to me than the histogram itself.
Okay, but look at this. This is very interesting that this is grouped like this, I think. Okay, so fine. So let's do that labeled by, so what do we want to do? We want to say...
thread, 2-character code. So sorry, those histograms... Okay.
Yeah. So what do we want to do? We want to do an association of %9 goes to %10?
Something like that, yeah.
Do you need to thread that?
Yeah.
Pure association did that. Okay.
No, you need association thread or you thread it yourself.
Okay.
So Shift GIS. Okay, so that's very interesting.
Where? What? I mean, this is not as convincing looking at this picture because this is all kinds of random junk out here.
Yeah, but Itai's point is that the Shift GIS or JIS and the UJP and so on are in the same cluster as ASCII.
It's crazy. Totally crazy. Well, so, I mean, I assume that this network is a recurrent network that is dealing with sequences, not just dealing with the histogram, right?
That's my understanding of how my very limited understanding of how it's implemented.
Right.
Yes.
I mean, I think that is part of the problem that, Jeremy and I do not have sufficient expertise in the mechanics of...
Has somebody from machine learning looked at this? So, by the way, somebody's asking on the live stream, is it forming clusters around the same encodings? We don't know. It looks kind of crazy to us. That is, these things, that group, like EUC and ISO Latin Cyrillic, appear to have EUC is there. And so iso-Latin Cyrillic, yeah, look at that, look at that, look at those two. Well, it did a good job in terms of clustering. Look at that. They're almost identical. That's really weird.
And I wonder, so here's, yeah, so I guess one thing we need to see, one of the things, I think there's a problem. Because, if, so 2-character code, if you don't have the character in the encoding, it puts in none. And so I think that it's possible.
But that's not going to show up in the histogram.
Exactly.
Oh, that's why some of these histograms are blank.
Probably.
Okay. Look, I think we're doing somebody else's project for them here.
Right.
I am completely unconvinced that this is so hard. Here's the decision tree I'd like to follow, or something. Let's ask somebody from machine learning to just look at this thing and see whether it was totally crazy. Fair?
Okay.
The network. Okay. Second, I think we should follow the path of leaving the find character encoding futurized here, put character encoding arrow automatic into import, document it lightly, and put find character encoding into the function repository. With the statement that, and when I say document it lightly, character encoding arrow automatic, just say attempts to find.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that's the usual phrasing
argue,
for find functions.
Yes, I agree. But I would argue that there might be some verification. Okay, ask somebody from machine learning. I think something was done wrong here. That's my guess.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's go on to the next item.
All right. So here I'm comparing the behavior of old question mark and new question mark. Right, so the old question mark.
I'm sorry, just for the sake of our live streaming audience, I would say the point of this is if you have a file with raw bytes, can you guess what character encoding that file was in? So if you're given a spreadsheet and you're not told the character encoding. By the way, how good are we when we import an XLS file or something? We read the character encoding metadata, don't we?
I believe so, and not just that, but I believe that the character encoding is part of the standard for that format.
Yeah, I think so too, and similarly for mail, right? But yet we see spreadsheet imports that have, so maybe the problem is that people are not setting the character encoding. Am I making sense? That somehow it's not getting, I mean, maybe we have a more upstream problem that the metadata in these formats, because I'm certainly seen plenty of spreadsheet imports that have wrong character encodings. Perhaps it's worth just taking a quick look at what's going on with that. For example, I remember that the, whatever it is, the meteorites example in the data repository was an example of one that was, I think, a spreadsheet import that had the wrong character encoding. So my question is, how could that possibly happen if the spreadsheet itself has correct character encoding metadata? Make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it may depend on whether it's an actual spreadsheet or if it's just a CSV or TSV file or something.
That's true. Yeah, CSV, TSV, those are the candidates where, or a pure text file are candidates where we would not have metadata.
Right. So yeah, there actually is another issue if we want to go into this. We have 3 groups of functions that take a character encoding, formats. 3 groups of formats. We have the text-based ones that take a character encoding option. So
yep.
there's the text ones, CSV, TSV, actual text. We have HTML, where automatic at least at the present time, what automatic means is basically look at various different places where the character encoding might be specified in HTML. And then we have grid, table and list, which currently just assume ISO Latin 1, and you can...
Sorry, for which are you talking about? For import formats for what?
Import formats which take a character encoding option. So we have table and grid, we have table and list.
Yeah.
Right? Which assume ISO Latin 1 for import. Then we have the various text formats, which are text, CSV, TSV, and then we have HTML. And on some level, right. So the question was, do we want to, really make automatic be, auto detect, or do we want a special string called auto detect, and then automatic for these other formats for which, there's a different automatic behavior we can, which is primarily HTML, we can still have automatic there. Or do we want inconsistency?
Look, automatic. Okay, so one question is read it from the metadata.
Right.
Right? Which is more like could be an automatic, could be an inherited.
Mm-hmm.
No, I think that if there is metadata, automatic means read it from the metadata.
Okay.
There probably could be a, the question is, should there be a setting that says, go try and deduce this, even if it's not in the metadata?
Right.
Well, let's get it to work better before we do that.
Okay.
But I agree, you should remember that point so that we remember that in, so when we document it in character encoding, in the character encoding option, we'll say automatic means either get it from the metadata, or if there isn't metadata, try to deduce it from the content.
Okay.
All right, on to the next issue. $post and question mark. This has got to be a corner case. What is it?
Right. So if you set, so the thing is, question mark used to print its side, print
as a side effect.
It wasn't subject to $post. But if you now set $post, then information will do whatever, right? It's now returning things. Which...
Well, does question mark do the same as information?
Yes, that was the point we were going for. Although we could make it a magic form which behaves differently, right? So I think our two main possibilities is either question mark and double question mark are
okay. Here's what I'd like to
post, see. Or we make them magic and they print.
Here's what I'd really like. Okay. Just like we have special, pausing forms like equals sign, like greater than sign. What I'd really like is to have question mark be one of those, so that I could type in here any old stuff, right? And have that be a general way to get help. That's what we planned in version 1. Actually, it's the way it worked in SMP back in version, in minus 8 years, 10 years, whatever it was.
Okay, so what I don't know what that's supposed to be.
Well, I think that would be okay. So I admit that I just made this up because I'd remembered, the previous goal. In other words, what I'm suggesting here is that this, like equals sign, is an escape to something where you can just type any old stuff, where you're not constrained by the standard parsing, right? Because that's a parsed thing that does that, right?
Well, it's an auto-stringified thing.
Okay, fine. Well, auto-stringification is fine. I'm just suggesting maybe question mark should actually have a visual feedback in the notebook front end.
Right, well, we went through this last time and we rejected it.
Why?
Because, because I mean, you have autocomplete, you have, all, I mean, you have...
Right, look, if you're asking, do I care about the corner case of dollar post? The answer is I don't think I care about that corner case.
Okay.
And what is this doing here? Internal.
That's just a way to call the old version of information.
Right. That's the old question mark.
Yeah.
I wish this wasn't so ugly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a particularly bad case because the usage message for plot is generated from the documentation, so it's stringified boxes. So
how should we be doing that? Is there an optimization of those things that we could easily write?
I don't know what that means. I mean,
so in terms of function usage, we basically have either the usage message or at least for the things that we have documentation and ref pages for, we have the cellified version or the boxified versions of them that like the code assist raft uses.
Right, but basically you're talking about raw boxes either way.
Yeah. In terms of input form, they're all going to look a little messy. If that was for, plot style instead of a function, the usage message would be pretty clean since it'd just be a string. It wouldn't need to be raw boxes, probably.
Right, but as long as you want it to look all pretty like that, then it has to be typeset boxes, whether it's linear syntax or actual boxes.
Sorry, I got distracted for a second. Could you repeat?
As long as you want the usage to look pretty, it needs to be boxes, whether that's linear syntax or typeset boxes.
Why wouldn't it be just typeset boxes here? Why does it have to be a string?
Well, but I mean, you'd see the input form of the boxes, right? I mean, you're not going to see something pretty either way.
Yeah. Well, so this would be two boxes of that. Is that right?
No, it would be probably make expression of two boxes of that. Two boxes of make expression of that.
Apparently
and
not.
It doesn't even parse, so it would be
okay. All right, whatever.
right. It would be exactly what you would see if you were to unformat that cell, right?
This cell here.
Yes, if you unformat that cell.
Oh gosh.
Oh no, that's still the string form.
Why on earth is this stringified? That's my question.
Because it's a usage message, and messages are strings.
This is really looking back into the deep, atavistic entrails of the previous generations of goats.
Yeah, it's the tricky part about modifying a function introduced in version 1 is we get a fair bit of history that comes along with it.
Well, look, I don't care about the corner case of dollar post. I think there's some cleanup that could be done around all of this, which may be forced upon us by function repository documentation and things like this. But I think let's not worry about this particular thing right now, unless there's some other case that I'm not seeing. Are you about to tell me about other horrifying cases?
I'm not going to tell you about other horrifying cases, but there are a couple of cases where I think...
Weren't we redoing the formatting here? What happened to that?
That is the redone formatting.
Do we have somebody from design here? Because I thought we'd agreed to put this on the left.
Heidi should be here. And I think...
Is Heidi with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Agreed to put the drop down on the left.
No. The label on the left.
We talked about putting it as a tab there and decided it was...
Yeah, I thought we rejected that.
Okay.
That is
it's too heavy. This is still too heavy.
Yeah.
Is this your redesigned version or not?
It's close. Yeah, it's not quite exactly what I have. Nick's still working on it.
Well, is Nick? Can you comment on that? Is Nick here?
Yeah, I'm here. I mean, is Shushma? Okay, never
I
mind.
mean, I can send you the design mock, and we can see if it's close or if there's changes at that end.
Please send me. Yeah.
Sure.
I just think this would look better on the left. I don't understand why we're not doing it on the left.
All right. Well, I mean, okay, that's
also
a
this
one
font
line
looks-
change.
What's that?
That's a one line change.
No, I realize that. I mean, unless there's something silly about this, but
Okay, maybe just send you the link in chat.
well, I think your gray is like significantly lighter here. Did you spec the gray level?
Yeah, I've passed gray levels. I think we're still working on those final little details.
Okay.
And I don't know that the plot, that bolding of plot is doable.
It's probably doable. It may not be desirable.
Okay, well, doable in any robust fashion that we would want to actually do.
And Jeremy asked me to put the opener closer at the bottom of the pod, but I didn't get to that before the meeting.
The opener closer.
So it doesn't make a stripy look, yeah.
Yes. Good idea. Well, I don't understand, but what is that the opener for?
That's
So
for the bottom part. It's already open. If you click on it in the actual thing, it'll close. Right, so that's the difference between question mark and double question mark.
So where does Jeremy want you to put that?
Once it's opened, it would go to the bottom.
Ah, very good. Good idea. Yes. I think you should try this on the left. Could you try it on the left? Unless you have a good reason to not do that. Both this and the opener. Also, is this really the size we settled on? It looks big. Maybe it's okay. Maybe it's just because I have. Oh, I see. Maybe my magnification didn't magnify this. Did you get what I'm saying? That's weird. Is that really right? Do we really want that smaller size? And do we want that smaller line spacing between the entries here? Am I making sense?
Well, I was in Photoshop, so what was the, sorry. Now I'm
okay. The font seems too small here, and the interline spacing, the inter-element, usage message spacing seems too small.
Well, isn't it the same as, usage messages normally are? I mean, what if you,
Yeah, but I think if you increased it to the amount of space of blue space that's
look, there's what it is in the current version. Something has gone wrong here.
Okay, I think it's just that the font is slightly smaller.
Right, so it should be the same size, and I would prefer slightly more leading between the usage message elements.
Like the amount of blue that you have above the first plot and below the last.
Yeah, for example, would be good. Okay, my other complaint is in here, I think these look very computeristic, and I think they could look better with a maybe slightly bolder or something. Those links.
Okay. We've went around and around about whether we should go to code font or use a source sans. Jeremy thought we should use code just because it's their code based. It would be appropriate here.
I don't think it looks very good.
Nobody thinks it looks very good.
Well, then we shouldn't use it. Then we should go to the non. If the non-code font is going to look good, then that's what we should use. Okay, same as we're using up here.
Do we have a way to compare the two?
Not in real time.
Heidi, do you have a mock-up somewhere where we could compare the two, or no?
Yeah,
if we're really going to go over this, do we have more to go over on this? If so, we should probably get Jeremy here.
We have in terms of visual, well, I'm not sure. It depends on what your reaction will be to the other visual design. And we also have a couple of behavior questions.
I think the visual design of these ones looks quite good. I mean, I think it could go to the left with the cloud object thing and it would still look good, I think.
If you refresh the design, I put the labels on the left. The only thing it does is it throws the openers and closers kind of off.
No, they should be on the left as well.
Okay.
Okay. And this should align with the text, I think.
Could the opener go in the head where it says symbol?
Well, I was trying to keep in stride with what we had done before with the audio and not reinvent user interfaces with every new thing.
Could we try to get Jeremy here?
Okay.
So these down here, okay, let me just keep looking at these. I would say these look really quite good. That's a big thing. It's a big thing. That's a big amount of information in that file thing.
Yeah, that's the updated version of file information. So we've got all the extra parameters we didn't use.
Why has UID got a space in it? It seems
that's an oversight. There's an auto decameling for camel case properties, and it's just missing UID.
Okay,
so I'll fix that. And this list is comprehensive to what we have at the moment.
I have to say, I really think that this should have a plus and a more for something of this size. Well, I don't know. I mean, this is information you're asking for, so I think we should consider in the future having a plus with more.
Okay.
But I think this looks very good. Whatever. I mean, some of these are a little bit funky.
Yeah, for the most part, we tried to focus on expressions we already have an information function for. And the next pass would be looking at all the things like interpreters and other things where we don't currently have an information function.
No, I don't understand this. We have like hundreds of properties.
So this is the entity summary information. So this is similar to the summary pods we serve.
Okay, then we need a link to get to more entity information somehow.
Okay.
Like to the entity data set or something, because it makes it look like this is all we have.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we probably don't want to populate everything we have about Germany when you ask for it out of the box.
Otherwise, we could say something like summary in this information thing, but I think it would be really good to have a link of some kind to the full, data set query. You know what I'm saying?
So at least some indication that there's more information available.
Yes, but at the very least, we could put the word summary somehow in this yellow box here or something.
Yeah, I mean, entity is the only special case we have right now where we're giving a subset of all data because we have the ability to have that curated set of major properties for each domain.
Margin of error. What does that mean?
So these are the qualifiers for the property. So you're looking at, you said, give me information about the population property for city. And this is a breakdown of the qualifiers that are available.
That's really weird. No, that seems completely wrong. Wait a minute. The first thing that we should have, this isn't right. This is a question for Alan and Tony, what to do for this case. Because the first thing we should say is, the characteristics of this entity property before we start yakking on about its attributes. See what I'm saying? And then there should be a header here that indicates that those are the attributes. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, the parent information for the property, it doesn't display there because it gets put in the the subheading box where it says city population it also includes the type and the name.
No, I'm well aware of that. I'm saying before we start yakking about these subcases, right?
We want to say things like units or notes.
Yeah, or whatever
like
we
that.
want to do. Yes, right here.
Okay.
Right, before we go off onto this stuff.
Okay. Yeah.
It's kind of wrong, and this is wrong. Okay, that's just wrong. Doing that, I would say. You got to ask somebody who knows what's actually in these things.
Okay.
And Jeremy is here, Stephen.
Okay. Jeremy, we're still talking about whether these headings should be to the left, and I'm not really happy with where do we have them? Yeah, this, it seems way too small. This is the old one, this is the new one. Seeing it?
Yeah, I'm seeing it.
I think it's too small. I think there should be more leading between the elements.
Yep.
But now what we're discussing is whether this should go to the left, as it is here. What do you think? And if it does go to the left, I think what we've discussed is having this footer down at the bottom like this.
Yeah, can you refresh the design?
I do like it left. Seems like it stands out less, which is probably good.
Right, and it can go slightly lighter gray as Heidi has it, and it hasn't been followed here. I think this size is right for this, but this stuff should go to larger. Make sense?
Okay. Yep.
And this could be a light gray, and I think that will be okay. Now down here, I think this font is really sucky. And
that's our code font, so we went back and forth on this, and we could do source, and it looks pretty decent.
Then let's do that. Let's make it look good. Let's not be pedantic about what this means.
Okay. All right. I could give you a notebook. I don't know if it'll work.
Okay, what else is there to discuss about these information things? So I feel strongly about the entity case, and I would like to figure out, let's just look out some of these. Ooh, wow.
Yeah, and this is basically replicating the existing classifier information.
That's too big. I mean, talk to the machine learning team, but I think it's too big on this, given the size of all this other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Library function and process, or library information and process information, are both pretty sparse. They are existing information functions, but they don't. I mean, process information basically just has.
It's fine. Don't worry about it being too sparse. But with this, that font is way too big. I don't even understand why it would be so big. This may want to be re-rendered for the information box, right? Without as many grid lines, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You got to ask the machine learning team.
Okay.
I would target, Jeremy, do you want to comment on this? I would target something about that size, maybe 0.6 of the linear dimensions. Make sense?
I'd go down to half even, just
fine. But then we may have to, I don't know whether it'll auto prune the grid lines and so on.
Okay, yeah, I can take a look at that.
Where's the width coming from on that? Is that going to get fixed? Somehow it doesn't want to line wrap that list.
Yeah, it's because that'll get fixed. That's because the method option is long, but that should be an opener.
But it's going to line wrap this, yes?
Yeah.
And how does the line wrap outdenting and so on work?
In terms of the indentation for the next line. Yes, I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to.
Yeah, I'm saying how does it work? How does the leading work? And how does it indent to, if it line wraps?
Yeah, it should indent, I think. Okay. And we can look at leading, but it should be nice and tight.
Okay, fine.
I just mailed you a mock-up of that function list if you want to take a quick look. There's some options to go through. So if you scroll to the bottom, that's source sans, and it's kind of demi-bold versus plain for the font weight. The bottom's kind of bold.
I like that. Don't you like that one?
I don't like it. But
I was gonna say I like it. I mean, especially when you start collapsing things.
Yeah, I ended up so I like the one above it at first, but the less the quantity gets less the more you need that weight. Like maybe it looks good with a lot of functions, light, but by the time it's only a couple, you want weight on those function names. It felt more natural.
Itai, do you have a reasoned reason why you don't like it?
I guess it feels a little heavy to me, especially with, right, I mean, if you did all of plot star and get, back 60 symbols.
Yeah, it's a balance, because I do agree that the first one, if you scroll up, looks better in the case of a large quantity, but it's just not, it doesn't always look like that. If you scroll down a little bit, that's source in lighter weight, somewhere in the middle, right there. So that looks pretty good with a lot of functions, but it's, it's not
it
great for the case of a couple. Yeah.
So out of curiosity, is there a reason that we're getting 2 columns instead of like 3, or?
It's based on window width, so I'm guessing.
And the length of the symbol names.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, but right now, if you do, plot star or whatever that is it 2 columns?
It gets even more than that. I think it gets up to 4 or 5, depending on window width.
Right. I mean, like in the old.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, we're using, I think, more or less the same algorithm for determining width, which is looking at dollar output width and the length of the symbols.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, this has always looked okay, except for the line printer background.
And I think it's overly big. I mean, I don't think it has to be that big.
Okay. Well, all right. So look, I am good with the heavier font. Unless we have really violent objections, I suggest we go with it. Okay. So that's this one. Let's just look through some of these others. Okay, so down here with these entities, we need a way to indicate that this is the summary.
Mm-hmm.
We could either say paren summary or summary, but if entity is on the right, on the left, we could say paren summary on the right.
Okay.
Jeremy, any comments on that? Do you think it'll look stupid?
I'm worried about how it reads, because it's not describing the information we're showing. This is the type entity. So I hate to put summary up there.
Well, okay, the summary is really down here.
Yeah, it's in the white area.
Or maybe we just need like a button at the bottom, right? Just like we have links, right? You have more info : and a button that generates or pops out a call that. I mean, I'm not enough in the weeds of entity anymore to know exactly what I'm looking at versus what you want. But maybe
it's just data set. It'd just be that entity data set. I mean, we could say entity data set, for example, underneath, or full entity data set.
Right, and then have a button that spits it out.
Yes, that spits out the input for that.
Mm-hmm.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
Fine, let's do it. Okay, and then my only big objection here is this entity property thing, which is just you need to talk to somebody from the entity world about that.
Yeah, we'll do. We also designed it to be scalable so other groups can work on setting up things that are custom for their solutions.
Otherwise, it looks nice. Okay, do you have any other?
We have another question that you skipped over.
Yep.
So you need to scroll up back to the symbols. In user-defined symbols,
yes.
Right, so there at the bottom, there's the question of, so if you look at question mark number versus question mark number, that's showing sort of the difference between question mark and double question mark right now. And I'm contrasting that with...
I thought that we were, in this version, that we were putting the context delimiter, that was in a smaller, grayer font. Is that not correct? That we were putting the context, that was a general change to formatting.
I don't know anything.
No.
You mean just like normally in notebooks?
Yes, that was something that I had asked to have happen. Did it not happen?
It did not happen, nor do I think it should happen. I mean,
yeah, it was distinguishing. We went through this with John. Can you find out, Sushma? Can you find out what happened to that?
Okay.
Kind of annoying. Yeah.
I mean, I don't think we should change that box structure. Now, if you
no box structure change. I'm merely talking about on formatting. Okay.
Okay.
It didn't
rendering.
do it properly. Yeah. That the rendering of the foo should be smaller and grayer. That's all I'm talking about.
Well, okay. I mean, they're right. Well, that may not happen automatically in output, right? Because we disable show syntax styles in output by default.
That's not the point. I'm talking about the print form of this being smaller and grayer. That's it. I mean, the print form of any. No.
Well, you're confused, Stephen.
Yeah.
The right. I mean, there are two things. There are only two variables. There's the boxes and the rendering. And just agreed that the boxes can't change, which means only the rendering can change.
Yep.
And the render, the only reasonable thing I see here is that, this would be controlled by show syntax styles, like all the coloring.
That's a detail. Let's not go into that detail.
Which means it will only happen in input, not in output.
That's not right, though. It should happen in both cases. So there are plenty of other, like show string characters being true or false. Those are other things. Okay, let's find out. Sushma should find out why this didn't happen. Okay, but meanwhile, you had a question over here.
Right, which is so. Right now, question mark, just if there isn't a usage message, question mark, the new question mark is just showing the full name of the symbol. Now, if you look at the old information for a symbol, if there wasn't a usage message for a symbol, it would basically, there was no difference between question mark and double question mark. Which on the one hand is kind of useful because it means if there's actually anything there to look at, right? Or if it's just a symbol that exists. But on the other hand, there's no difference between question mark and double question mark.
Sorry, in this case, double question mark has the second section opened, right?
Right.
Okay. And what is happening now? Is there a change?
That is a change, right? So if you go to an older or even a master front end and you type in x equals 5 and then question mark x, right? Then you see the definition, because it's only when there's a usage message that there's a difference between question mark and double question mark. Right?
I see. Well, I personally favor the new behavior where the double question mark causes this to be open and the single question mark doesn't.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well.
Any objections?
My main objection is that it makes it harder to tell. I mean, I suppose that just means I always use double question mark, but it means that with question mark, it's more difficult to tell of whether there are any definitions attached because that's hidden.
It's only hidden if there's a usage message, right?
No, it's hidden precisely when there's.
Oh, I see. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. All right, because I can see these things here being hideable, but the definitions shouldn't be hidden. Get what I'm saying? If you say question mark X, the definitions should be visible. Maybe some of these details about full names and attributes, maybe. I don't know. You're right. We don't want to hide the definitions. So if the choice is hide nothing or hide everything, I would say hide nothing.
Okay.
If there's a more nuanced choice, then that would be even better.
Okay. All right. Iconize.
Okay.
Right. And as we continue on, Right. So one thing we didn't document, but iconize produces an iconized object. So, and this.
By the way, why is that still? Oh, I see. That's an old version. What does it look like in the new?
Yeah, if you open up the next section, you'll see what it looks like and what it looks like now. But,
oh, but that isn't right. It isn't there.
Okay, so I have a. Oh, okay. It's because I see. It's all in the style sheet. I can share my screen if you want to see what.
Okay, is it a prototype build or not yet?
It is in the prototype build. So
it is. Okay, so I can probably go to the prototype build.
Is that the prototype build? It just the icon just turned normal colored.
It is the prototype build, and it's still grinding to launch itself.
Okay.
Okay. Much better. Much better, in my opinion. Okay. So what should we be looking at here specifically? So if I say iconize of association, that isn't the most beautiful rendering of the vertical bars and so on. And I think there could be more space with the dots, but otherwise that looks fine. That thing looks like some kind of alien spacecraft right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is Lou? Is that an actual left association character, left and right association characters, or is
that's an image resource?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so let's get them right because they seem wrong.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. What other types of cases do we have here?
The inline sequence. So do range and just select it manually.
Yeah. So.
I think the plus needs to be less notable than the ... I think the ... should be darker.
Okay. Yep.
And I think I can see that in this case as well. This behavior is magnificent.
If you make the plus lighter, is it going to need a hover effect?
It has a hover effect.
Oh, does it?
It does
Okay,
have a hover
gotcha.
effect,
Okay.
Yeah.
I think this is very nice. Very, very nice.
Okay, so now that
you try darkening the ... dots. Go ahead. Yep.
So now that we've buttered you up with pretty pictures, let's talk a little bit about language design.
Yes.
So, all right. So maybe we should just look at this holistically. So go back to the note.
Actually, sorry, I've got one more point.
Okay.
I think here we should say comment / uncomment, iconize / uniconize. I just don't like having the un first.
Okay, that's well, Lou, you know who to
I can make a note of that.
Okay. Okay. And that, by the way, will affect the cloud as well. So somebody should take it there.
Okay.
I assume you want the same in the edit menu where this appears for real. Not just the context menu. Yep.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Let's take a look. It'll get very wide there.
Yes, it will.
What do you think? I think this is more survivable because I think you read the iconized selection more here. Iconized selection is more something you end up reading than that iconize uniconized thing.
Is the selection really necessary in that menu?
Well, yes. Why does it not say cut selection, you might ask?
Yes. Other than tradition.
Right, and actually complete selection is wrong, right? Because it doesn't really look at the selection. It looks at the symbol to the left of the cursor. So,
Okay, hold on. Let's look at this. So it isn't, complete. What is it? What is it actually?
So that's in cases where you've disabled automatic code assist pop-ups.
I know, yeah.
Then, right, and make.
I mean, it could just be autocomplete. Well, it isn't really autocomplete because it's manually done here.
Yes, and make template is the equivalent of the little drop down you get after you complete to see the different templates, or maybe you see them now automatically. I don't remember, but
yeah. Okay. So listen, I don't think these are quite right. This is something for the user assistance meeting, for this menu, but I think the comment uncomment should be fixed. Okay. And for right now, let's leave this as un/comment select.
So only change the context menu.
That's correct for right now.
I'll do that.
And should it be uncomment with C capital?
No.
No. So comment and then /u and then uncomment one word with U.
Yeah, which means it might have to go into the spell corrector.
Okay, and same thing for iconize too, because I don't know if people will read it as unicorn something. I don't know.
Well, let's look at that. hold on.
I was gonna say
oh my God.
Recently read on iconize as unicorn or unicornize.
You're right. That's not a winner. Well spotted.
Do we want it to be de-iconize?
What's that?
Do we want it to be de-iconize or do we want to hyphenate?
I don't think we should hyphenate. Okay. Well, let's look at that. Well spotted, Sushma.
That string also appears in the expanded iconize blob.
De-iconize. That looks like a de-icing. Oh, that's not good either. That looks really 1970s. Whew.
Do we want to change it to iconize /expand and in context that's clear? And then in the context menu, sorry.
Well, but we've still got the comment uncomment.
Right. Although I think uncomment is recognized as a word. I could be wrong.
We could say iconize toggle, comment toggle.
Yeah. Or, yeah. Iconize toggle.
Not exactly a toggle, though. Well, I guess through the menu it is.
Yeah, I mean the keyboard shortcut and the menu is certainly a toggle.
Why are there not keyboard shortcuts shown in the context menu?
Because that's the tradition of the context menu, I think.
It seems wrong to me. Can we bring that up? Or Lou, do you have an answer to that?
No, I don't.
Let's bring that up in user assistance, please.
Okay.
And for the record, I don't think I've ever seen shortcuts in a context menu.
Yeah, but maybe that was just some, random thing that Steve Jobs said one day when the situation was different and everybody's followed it ever since.
Possibly.
I don't see why we don't have.
Yeah, actually Eclipse shows the keyboard shortcuts in context menu, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, maybe they do.
Okay.
So, all right. So can we now get back to the question?
No, have we come to a conclusion here? Are we just going to leave this as it is, or?
I thought we had settled on iconize toggle.
I don't like it. I really don't like it. Do we know what state the thing is in when we bring up this menu?
I don't think
that information is not currently accessible to the front end. No.
Could somebody put themselves on mute?
Do we want the I capitalized there?
For people on the live stream, it has to be a verb.
If you're okay with the wording in the edit menu, we could use the same wording in the context menu for now.
Which was what? Uniconized selection.
Yes.
Uncomment selection. I agree that's better because you tend to read the iconized selection altogether. Fine. It's not fantastic, and I would like that on the user assistance agenda, but for 12.0, this will be fine.
Okay.
Okay, now, Itai, you had further language design issues.
Right. Right. So iconized produces an iconized object.
Yes.
And then iconized object has which is currently undocumented, although maybe we should have documented, but iconized object takes an option, which is not currently exposed in iconized, although maybe it should be, which is sort of a method to make it, smaller in Notebook. So if you were to take,
yeah, it's a cool idea. I think we should expose that in iconize at least.
Right. And so if you were to take one of the second or third iconized things there and convert to standard form.
In these here?
Yeah. So take that and convert to standard form. And you'll see it's a big uncompressed blob because what you did is you compressed it. So
how do I convert out of standard? Am I toggled or am I dead here?
You're dead unless you iconize again, right? So you can. Is it still Shift Control I, Lou?
And he should be able to undo it also.
Oh well, that's true.
No, undo didn't work. Oh, it did work. By the way, George in our live stream is talking about shortcuts aren't needed when you're already in the menu. Would you exit the menu to use the shortcut? The whole point is their education. That you don't even need to use the menu next time around. Somebody on our live stream is suggesting iconize/revert. I think that's super confusing because the revert could mean so many other things. Okay.
So we expose this in iconize, and then the question is, should we document iconized object?
Let's not for right now. We can always document it later.
Okay, what's the reason not to document it?
I'm just worried that it might change its structure sometime. What does that second argument automatic do?
That's where the label is stored. Automatic means the user did not specify a label. But I agree that we might well need to change this structure if we start adding yet more bells and whistles.
Okay.
Do we have versioning in this iconized object anywhere?
No, and so far we don't need it.
But if we think we might be changing it, I mean, in other words, that method option, if I were to take that thing there, okay, and I were to edit its method option, I would just get total garbage, right?
I think it would yell at you.
Can you? I don't understand what you were.
I'm saying if I take
the output no longer has a reference to the method option. The output has a reaction to the method option.
I see, which is itself just a command that reverses the method option. In a sense.
Right. We've changed the expression that was actually iconized. Rather than iconizing expr, we made it be uncompressed of the compressed expression.
Right. Okay. Look, I just don't feel that we thought this through well enough to document iconized object. But with respect to my versioning question, are you guys confident, because you are basically self-generating a self-unpacking creature, that there is no versioning question?
The only versioning question I could imagine would be regarding the visual display. The evaluation is rock solid and not changing.
Okay. Well, I mean, the visual display, no, we're not going to grandfather that. If we change the visual display, we're changing the visual display.
Okay.
We probably do need a little gallery of what all the displays are, because we need to get rid of the alien rocket ship thingy here and anything related to that. Do we have such a gallery?
Not
these
offhand.
assets.
Lou, do you
Billy-
have one handy?
Maybe
Or
Billy has
Billy?
You must have those image assets.
Yeah.
Yeah, Billy definitely has those.
hmm
And I assume that these are vector graphics. Hey, wait a minute. What's going on here? Why isn't this getting bigger? That's wrong.
What are you doing?
I'm doing magnify.
Or increased font size, probably.
Oh, I'm doing increase. I'm doing command plus, which doesn't magnify. You are correct. I am wrong.
Right. I mean, it would if we had text.
No. That
Actually, I'm curious. When you open it up, or are we hard coding the font size? Which
yes, which is probably not a bad thing for this case. But if I go here and I say go to 300%, yeah, that's fine. That's nice vector graphics. That's not a problem. Okay. All right. Listen, I think we're over time here.
Yep.
We have
okay.
to
Well,
talk about.
these were all the topics that were needed for 12. I mean, these I think
Okay.
are more
So
open-ended
we'll revert
conversations.
to those
so we
another
can
time.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you all very much. Thanks to the folks on the live stream. Good comments. Talk to you all.